So, subject-verb agreement. Subjects and verbs agree with one another in number, singular or plural, and person. Agreement as to the number means that the verb may have a different spelling depending on whether the subject is singular, one, or plural, more than one. The verb in these examples changes when the subject changes from singular to plural. The following is a singular example. The musician is a professional. Here's the plural. The musicians are professional. Okay, you see the difference in the verb. First person, I walk to the store. Second person, you drive to the store. And third person, Joey runs to the store. A lot of the subject-verb agreement sometimes is tough to deal with. And then shift. Shift is an abrupt change of perspective within a sentence or between sentences. Types of shifts in grammar are shift in person, shift in number, and shift in tense. Have you ever had anybody shift while they're speaking to you and automatically just change to another subject that does not have any transition to it, and you get lost and you have no idea what they're talking about? The same thing when you're writing, if you do that. Okay. All right. We talk about shifting voice. Voice is a term that indicates whether the writer has emphasized the doer of the action, the active voice, or the receiver of the action, passive voice. Avoid shifting voices within a sentence. Okay, here's an example. We went to the post office, which is active, and the letters were mailed, which is passive. Okay. Active, going to the post office, and were mailed. And so one way to fix this is we went to the post office and mailed the letters. Okay? Now, I have a bad habit of passive voice. It's something that I really, really had to work at when I was writing. For some reason, I would like that passive voice. And I used to get excoriated when I was a first lieutenant, trying to write memorandums and letters of instruction with all the passive voice in it. Okay. In a faulty pronoun reference, a noun is a word that names a person, place, or thing. A pronoun is a word used in place of a noun. Pronouns help avoid unnecessary repetition in our writing. For a pronoun to function correctly, it must refer clearly to a well-defined noun. Okay. Here's the pronoun reference. The gentleman, which is the noun, bowed to his partner. Okay, his partner, which is pronoun. Okay. Here's an example of a repetitive use of a noun. Although Seattle is damp, Seattle is my favorite city. Okay. Now, you can change that because it's redundant. It says, although Seattle is damp, it is my favorite city. So instead of saying Seattle twice, you use the pronoun it for it. Okay. Wordiness. Delete words, phrases, and clauses that do not add directly to the meaning of a sentence. Try to be less wordy and more to the point. Say your sentences to yourself with fewer words and see if the meaning stays the same. If so, use the version with fewer words. Here's an example. Under all circumstances, in every case, always check the oil level in your car when you stop at a service station. Okay, here's one that's more concise. Always check the oil level of your car when you stop at a service station. Okay, so they got rid of that first preposition, under all circumstances, in every case. Okay, jargon. Jargon consists of shorthand words, phrases, and abbreviations that are known only to a relatively small group of people. You should avoid jargon for two reasons. Your audience may not understand what you are saying or writing. Your message will be unclear when you rely on overused phrases as a substitute for original thinking. Okay, how many people do you think know what JCLC means? I mean, that's the jargon that we have in the junior RTC world. Okay. I know military is big on acronyms, and if you're using an acronym for the first time in professional writing, you would have to spell it out, and then in parentheses put what the acronym is, and then you can use the acronym later on in the body of your text. And then the overuse of to be and to have. Relying too heavily on forms of to be and to have as main verbs will diminish the effectiveness of your sentences. These words lack force as main verbs and do not establish the clearest possible relationship between the subject of a sentence and its predicate. When possible, substitute a verb that more clearly expresses action than to be or to have. For example, this is a vague. Mrs. Smith was at the office door. By changing the verb so that it is clear, the reader gets a better idea of what Mrs. Smith was doing. Mrs. Smith stood at the office door. You see how that got changed? All right. Let's go on. All right, so read the following sentence and select the option that correctly indicates the grammatical error. Okay, when writing papers, keep in mind accuracy, clarity, brevity and completeness, coherence, unity. Have someone review for errors, revise and rewrite it. Okay, what do you guys think? Yeah, man, it just keeps going on and on and on, right? That's a run-on sentence. Okay. All right, so think about moving from a draft phase to the final phase of writing. Remember, you've been staring at it, you've rewritten it, you've had people come and look at it and make suggestions and find the grammatical errors that you missed. Okay, now you're getting ready to go into the final phase. Okay, now I want you to use that same example. Okay, this example right here, the Microsoft Word document. I want you to use that same example. Okay, and I want you to come up with 2 writing pitfall mistakes or mistakes that you found in that. Okay, and then provide a revised edition of it to make to make it better. Okay, obviously we can't share it in the class because you're doing it online, but the people here at class will have to. Okay? So think about an upcoming written assignment required in another class. Okay. I know you guys, if you have Miss Alexander, you're going to have to write for her in English. Okay. While you're thinking about that, look up this and read this chapter again on becoming a better writer. Okay. And I'm sure it'll help you in English. You also need to fill out the performance assessment test. Now, here's some questions we'll go over. Okay. As a reflection, which common pitfall do you fall into as a writer? Okay. Now, I told you I got a couple of them. One of mine is wordiness, and the other one was passive voice. Those are 2 of the big ones that I always have to work on. Okay. All right. So, the beginning of a paper, a written speech, is known as, you got it, introduction. Okay. A blank is the final part of a paper or a written speech. Final part. Self-explanatory, the conclusion. Okay. A blank is the main part of a paper or written speech. Main part. Your body of your paper. Okay. Blank are used to collect that data for a report or paper. That's information cards. Remember, that's different from source cards. Okay. Blank are used to record the title, author, publisher. Okay. It's not information cards, right? That's the source cards because that's what you're going to put on your bibliography, on your paper. Okay. It is important to blank your readers into your paper. So make sure you have a catchy and exciting introduction, right? Yeah, you can just read and tell that it's entice. Right? A list of sources of information on a specific subject is known as, that's right, bibliography. I've mentioned that a few times now. A blank tells what or whom the sentence is about. That's right, that's your subject, remember, and the action is the verb. So you have to have subject-verb agreement. The main point of a paper is called, that's right, thesis statement, okay? That's the main point that you want to get to convey to the reader. Okay? A run-on sentence occurs if two or more independent clauses are joined without a conjunction or appropriate punctuation. Okay? A tells what the subject does, right? The predicate. When a writer emphasizes the doer of an action, the writer is using active voice. Remember, passive voice is the exact opposite of active, okay? Doer of an action. Okay? A fragment is a dependent clause. Okay? That means it's not a whole sentence. It's not grammatically correct. When a writer emphasizes the receiver of an action, the writer is using passive voice. Okay, that's the one that I have a bad habit of using. Okay. The act of copying ideas or words of another and claiming them as your own is known as cheating, but the official word is plagiarism. Okay. Now, how can you improve the quality of your writing? Okay. By doing it more and more and more so you're comfortable with it. Just like if you're not comfortable getting in front of the class and speaking, okay, you get comfortable with it by doing it. Okay, and that's what we'll do in this program for you. Okay. Thank you very much. Hey guys, it's Lieutenant Colonel Baker. Hey, we're now on to becoming a better writer. It is Unit Let 2, Chapter 2, Lesson 2. Okay, so U2C2L2. Okay, part of the personal growth and behaviors, and there is 5 classes in this whole segment. All right. So as always, the essential question: how can you improve the quality of your writing? And if you think about that, most people don't even consider how they can improve their writing. They just slap words to paper and hope that they get at least a passing grade. Okay? And this class is all about how to write effectively so you can put down coherent thoughts, get a good grade, maybe even win some scholarship money if you're applying for college. So, all right, so think about in your mind what you know about good writing. Okay, what is it that you think makes good writing? Okay, so what kind of a writer are you? Now you have, I'm a great writer, I'm a fair writer, I'm not good at writer at all, and I really don't know. I can tell you when I was your age, I was not a really good writer at all. And my goal, and all of our goals, should be to become a great writer. And then these are some of the techniques that you can use throughout your lifetime to create an effective writing paper, okay? Because you want, especially as a leader, you want them to understand you clearly, whether it's in written form or oral form. But so this is all about the written form. Okay, so documents for the class. Okay, this is a writing example that I want you to use for both of the exercises. Okay, there's the student text, which you can also find at the cadet portal. And there's the exercise 1 and exercise 2. And you say to yourself, well, how can I access that? Well, I'm glad you asked, okay? So here, I'm just in the regular slide deck, which is posted on the Google Classroom in the Classroom Drive folder. But if you click on this, okay, it brings up this, okay? Any of those that you click on, and this is the example that I want you to look at, okay? It's from an old Voice of Democracy, a cadet that you don't know because I've gotten rid of all the names. Okay. Same with the student text. If you click on it, okay, it'll bring it up so you can read it. Okay. And then also with the exercises, and these are the two things that need to go into your cadet portal. Okay. So let's move on. Here's our learning objectives. And really, distinguish among principles of good writing. All good writing has some of the same principles that are used by that writer. And that's what we want to identify. We also want to identify bad writing so you don't fall into those pitfalls, which we all have a tendency to do when we write. You'll notice that these keywords, active voice, bibliography, body, conjunction, conclusion, entice, fragment, information cards, okay? Those are all the ones that you would be standing in front of the class. If we were here face to face, I would assign certain people these to look them up and then say them in front of the class. Okay, it's almost like a exit ticket, but at the beginning of the class. And we want to explore the common pitfalls and mistakes in writing. Okay, those are the ones, and they've identified 10 of them. Okay. All right, so how would you answer these questions about writing? What kind of writing have you done or will you do in the future? Okay, now being in the military, I've had to write a lot of, they call them point papers. It's writing about a subject that, or topic that needs to be either fixed or identified. Okay, I've done a lot of research papers for my master's degree. I used to think that 10 pages was long until I got in there, and it was between 30 and 40 pages. So you really have to learn how to write effectively and succinctly to get your point across. Okay. Now, why do you write? Some people have to write for their jobs. Okay. You guys have to write for your Voice of Democracy, which is due the 10th of October, guys. Okay, this is an opinion paper, not a research paper. So this all comes from your opinion, okay? And the subject is this the country the founders envisioned? Okay, it's actually a good topic. Can't wait to read some of your essays, well, all of them, because I'll read them, but I'm excited to see what type of writing skills that you guys will have, okay? But it's imperative that you use some of these skills that you're learning in this class to write effectively, okay? Now, what do you do when you get writer's block? Okay, writer's block is where you just cannot think anything. I can tell you what I do. I just put the computer down and go out and do something for 30 to an hour that's completely different than writing. And then I'll come back and I'm a little bit refreshed by that, and then I'll start at it, okay? Sometimes it's the time of day that you write. Okay? You have to identify when your brain is working the best. If you're a night owl, it's probably like 1 or 2 in the morning. Okay, I can tell that's when I made my best writing for my master's degree. Kids were sleeping, dog and cat were sleeping, wife was sleeping, so I was up writing, okay, and I knocked it out. Okay, and then you wonder, how do you get started on a written project? Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, just putting pen to paper. Okay? And the very first thing you should do is figure out what your thesis statement is. What is this paper about? Okay? Sometimes, like I said, that's the hardest thing to do, unless somebody tells you what it's about. Okay. And then what helps you write? Okay. Are there certain techniques? Maybe for me, I listen to heavy metal music. For some reason, that motivates me to write. So that works for me, but everybody's different. So, how can you make writing more enjoyable? Some things probably will never be enjoyable, but the more you do it, the more you get used to it. Okay? All right, obviously we can't present those ideas to the class, but the students that are here on the A and B schedule will. Okay? All right, so let's think about the elements of good writing. Okay, here is the text that you're supposed to read. Okay, you'll remember that I had it embedded right there. See the student text, okay? So when it says, prepare to teach the class about one of the two assigned key areas for writing improvement. So really, the people that are here and that are also online watching this live, actually, they're going to have to teach a certain part of the class. Now, I've identified two areas. One is the introduction, and one is the body. Introduction is pretty self-explanatory, right? I mean, it is introducing your paper to that reading audience. And the body is, just like it says, it's the main portion of that paper that you're writing. Okay? So, the main point of a paper which you try to support through research is called, remember that thesis statement, right? That's the main point of the paper that you got to knock out. Okay? And like I said, sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is come up with a thesis statement. Okay? So what is a source card? Okay? If you read these, I like this one, a description of the contents of MREs. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. There it is. It's a card used to record publication data for resources being used during research for a project such as a paper or speech. In other words, that source card is a source that you have read and you're actually going to use in your paper. Just by reading it, you have to put it down on your bibliography as one of your sources that you access while you were writing the paper. Right? Lydia asked you to review her paper for errors and clarification. You were impressed that the paper stayed on the subject and was easy to read, and that you didn't find any errors in spelling, grammar, information. You think the paper contained a lot of extra and unnecessary information. So what principle of writing should you tell Lydia to improve? Okay. And that's brevity. Keep it shorter. I had a college professor that told me to wring the sog out of my words. In other words, just like a sponge, when it's oversaturated with water, you wring it out. And that's what she told me to do, because I had a lot of extra words in there that needlessly took away from the subject that I was trying to write about. Okay. So let's think about the purpose of writing drafts. Okay. First of all, what do you think a draft is? Anybody have an idea what a draft is? No? All right. So a draft is actually almost like a skeleton of a paper. You've got the bones out there, and you've written it down, you got your outline, you got your thesis statement. You need to start adding the muscle and ligaments to it and flesh to create a whole person instead of just a skeleton. So that's really what a draft is. It is something that is the first thing that you write down on your paper, and then you're trying to, it's like using an outline. Okay? An outline, you want to figure out, okay, I'm going to put the word introduction, so let me write an introduction sentence. Okay, here's going to be my body. Here's the main points of my body. And here's some of the paragraphs. Okay, that's what a draft is all about. Okay, remember, a draft is not its final version. A draft you should hand to somebody else to look at. Okay, you need more than just you looking at your paper for grammatical errors or things that don't sound right, or it helps to have other people look at it. That's why you should always have at least 2 or 3 people read over what you wrote and then listen to their suggestions that they make to make it sound better and read better. Okay. All right, so here we are. So we have exercise 1. Okay, so You'll notice here is the Word document again, but exercise 1 is all the way back here. Now you see that it's labeled exercise 1, and here's what it looks like. Now, okay, this is what exercise 1 looks like. Okay, you can also find these under the shared drive under the classroom folder. Okay, here's what exercise 1 looks like. Okay, what audience is this paper written for? Okay, you just answer the questions. This actually goes into your cadet portal also, or your portfolio. Okay, so let me go back here. Okay, and then I want you to provide your suggested areas for improvement in that paper. Okay? Now I believe that cadet was a junior when he wrote that paper. So just like most of you, sophomore or junior. Okay. So what do you think? What types of improvements seem to be needed most often? Okay. And then which of the basics of good writing do you need to focus on in your own work? All right, so let's think about the common pitfalls and mistakes when writing. Okay. So again, we want you to read the student text that I had posted for revise and rewrite. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is come up and give me at least one pitfall that you found in that writing assignment. Okay. And the explanation of the common mistake. Name it, explain it. What did he use that was the mistake? And then how can you improve it? Okay. And here are the 10 common pitfalls and flaws in writing.